Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us for the Round 1 Youth Innovation Showcase Judging Information session. Tonight, what we're going to be focusing on is a brief introduction and welcome, orientation to the judging process, reminders around providing constructive feedback, and the impact of the Youth Innovation Showcase on participants. Just as we kind of go throughout, while we have a bit of a deck prepared, please don't hesitate to interrupt, ask questions, ask for clarification. Feel free to unmute, feel free to put it in the chat, whatever works best for you. Firstly, we would just like to say welcome to you that are here in the live session and to those of you that are reviewing the recording after. We are so appreciative of the time and effort you're going to be providing to the youth by reviewing their innovation submissions for Round 1 of the Youth Innovation Showcase. What is the Youth Innovation Showcase, or YIS, as it's abbreviated for short? We're actually going into our 7th year this year, so whoop. But it is a STEM competition for youth in BC and the Yukon between the ages of 12 and 19 years of age. We actually have a couple of judges who are previous alums to the competition too, so woohoo for coming back and giving back in a different way. But a key purpose behind the Youth Innovation Showcase is really to provide the youth an opportunity to show off their unique innovations and their projects, to have this passion, to share it with judges and with others. We want to recognize them for the great work that they've been putting together. And I can guarantee you for the materials that have been being submitted already, we've got a lot of really great projects that are coming through for this year's Youth Innovation Showcase. Which is great because you all get to judge the first round of these projects. So there are 3 rounds in judging, but we're focusing right now on round 1. So round 1 judging is kind of our initial review of all of the projects. This will be taking place asynchronously or on your own time between October 1st and October 16th of this year. Our intention is that what you're going to be doing is reviewing a participant video and report. Now, the youth have been shared numerous times throughout the competition and will be shared more this week as well. We just sent a reminder email today as we are 1 week away from closing youth registration, that their video should be 45 seconds in length, plus or minus a 5-second buffer on either side, and a 1-page innovation report. Now, students might submit supplemental materials and other pieces, and that's great, but you're only required to review the pitch video and the 1-page innovation report, which is why we anticipate that review coupled with providing feedback should not account for more than 20 minutes per project. After you've reviewed the materials from each project that you've been assigned, we're going to ask you to provide feedback to the participants using the scoring sheet. And I'm going to do a screen share of the scoring sheet in just a moment. Scores are due by 12 p.m. Pacific time or noon Pacific time on Thursday, October 16th. And again, we'll provide ample reminders to our lovely judges throughout the course of this process too. If you finish beforehand, great, send those in sooner. We don't need to wait until the 16th. If you find you have more capacity or you're really excited by what you're seeing and maybe you want to take on more, send us an email. We're very happy to provide more projects for review, get more feedback for our youth, because in the end, that's a big part of what the Youth Innovation Showcase is. Before I shift screens to the scoring form, I just want to open it. What questions might you have about the general intention for the round 1 judging? Questions around protocol or process, timelines?
Should we, oh, sorry.
You go ahead.
No, you go first. You beat me to it.
I think Nadine, you're unmuted, so go for it.
Should we write our names? Like, should we initial that we were their judges for this session?
That's a great question. Thank you. No, you do not need to worry about initialing that you're their judges, because we want to keep the feedback anonymous to the youth in the first place. And secondarily, I'll have kind of the primary sheet that will align the judges with their relevant projects. And so when I send you an email, I'm going to send you an email and say, I don't know if you were 6 or 7 or 8 plus, but I'll send you your email with your number of projects and say, okay, Nadine, here are your projects. Here's the link to the file in the OneDrive. All the materials should be there. If anything's missing, send me a note. and then I'll know that you're their judge. And we have multiple judges for each project, of course. Thank you for that question. Liam.
Yes, I just had one little question. Though we are taking the supplementary materials if they do provide them into kind of account for our judging scores, right? Though, so we don't have to remove them, but if we do see something that could add to it, it would increase those scores.
I would recommend, because supplemental materials are just that, they're supplementary. They can provide a bit more information and guidelines for the judge to kind of like round out the overall innovation itself. But because not every person has done that in terms of just ensuring kind of fair evaluation across, we are trying to stick primarily to the video and the report, as that is the required component for each of the submission pieces. But yeah, sometimes some of the supplemental material are just a bunch of other like really cool photos or short videos of like the innovation functioning or working or whatever is going in that way, which is a lot of fun. This is kind of a curiosity piece. But again, kind of focusing on what every person is supposed to submit, which is the video and the report, and that should be the primary area where the scores are coming from. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to shift gears for a moment and we're going to go to a screen share for the judge scoring form. You'll receive a link for this. Hopefully you are seeing my page. Yeah, okay, wonderful. So you'll receive a link for this and basically you're going to, you want to save the link somewhere because you're going to need to keep accessing it because you're going to keep repeating and resending this form for every project that you're reviewing. And so we've outlined which round this is associated with, a reminder of when your scores are due, just in case, you know, throughout everything we forget. And then, of course, what we're going to actually enter in. So it's a 2-page form. You'll enter in the youth's name. I'm just going to put NA just to allow us to move to the next page. You fill out number 2, question 2, which is also youth name. And this is only if it's a partner project. That information will be shared to you in the email that will come with the links for the relevant project that you're responsible for reviewing. But if your project does not have a partner, you don't need to worry about entering any information in there. And then the last piece is to include the innovation name. And this just helps us to make sure that student and innovation are matched the appropriate feedback when we disseminate and share the feedback to the youth. Then we would click on the next in the lower left-hand corner. And then we get into our scoring sheet. So basically, this is on a scale of 1 to 4. 1 is emerging, 2 is developing, 3 is proficient, and 4 is extending. And then there are 4 key criteria, which we'll talk about momentarily, that we're going to be reviewing the projects based on. Innovation, communication, functional and realistic, and engagement. We have a couple of example questions to help as you're reviewing. You know, is the subject matter challenging for the age category? Keeping in mind that the Youth Innovation Showcase, while 12 to 19 years of age, is split into 2 age categories, 12 to 15 and 16 to 19. Is this idea unique? Have you heard of something before? Or is it a very unique approach to a common problem, but using maybe different materials or a different technique to address the same query? Communication. How well did they communicate? Have they avoided jargon and overly technical language? Were they easy to hear on the video as you kind of listen through their 45-second pitch? Functional and realistic really looks at, as the innovation is outlined, would it be functional? The Youth Innovation Showcase accepts anything from idea generation all the way through to full prototype that's been tested. So depending on the project, you may get some that are just a couple of sheets of paper or some notes about how the innovation might be framed. And others, it'll be, here is this app I created, or here is this device that I've created. In any case, ensuring that it's functional as it's outlined. So would this actually work kind of as it's set up? And is it realistic? So thinking in terms of rollout or utility, is this something that is realistic in supporting the problem or the query that the youth identified as kind of their guiding point throughout their project? And then lastly, engagement. So did the individual capture your interest? Do you want to hear more about the innovation? Was the way in which they put their pitch kind of catchy and fun? And, again, this is 45 seconds. The time goes by very quickly, but it is that elevator pitch. So were they able to communicate that information and engage in an engaging and clear way within that 45-second window? And again, if they're a second or two over, we tend to be pretty flexible. If they're submitting 5-minute projects, then that's a little bit different because again, it should be 45 seconds. And then you'll have space at the very end where you can enter in additional feedback and comments. And this is where you can provide that personalized feedback to the individual. So every project from round 1 will receive feedback, even if they don't advance to the semifinals to round 2. Everybody receives feedback, and this is a huge part of the Youth Innovation Showcase. So the role that you're playing as a judge is really important, not only in the scoring of the projects, but also in just providing that feedback to the youth so that they can take it away and work on it for future iterations, whether they want to take it to the 2026 Science Fair season, or they just want to come back for a future Youth Innovation Showcase. Once you filled out your form, you would click submit, and you would get a prompt that would say, thank you for submitting this form. It's currently open. Submit another one, and you just continue the process. For each innovation that you're reviewing, you fill out this 2-page form. Now, I recognize the 4 criteria might be a little bit like, can we go into this a little bit more detail? Don't worry, we've got that. But before we get there, I just want to open it to what questions you might have about navigating or filling out the form.
I don't know if you're going to touch up on this in an email, but how long should the additional feedback be?
Ooh, we generally, so that's a good question in terms of length of feedback. We don't really restrict or, recommend a limit, but more information is always helpful. It's not exactly the most effective for an individual just to be like, this innovation was great. Like that can be helpful. Like it's nice to have feel good, but it's also really difficult. What was great about it? Or what specifically stood out to you as a judge? Or again, if there's something that you are wanting to maybe recommend that they consider for a future innovation or future project, then some detail on what that might look like, as opposed to just saying, this could be done differently. That's good, but what, and how could it be done differently? Like, can we give them some probing questions to maybe, help them, redirect or think about something in a different way?
I also was wondering, this is the round 1 judging.
Yes.
Is there a second round that happens later on, like closer to winter? Or
there is, yeah. So there will be rounds 2 and 3. So round 2 is a semifinal, and round 2 and 3 are different in that they include a live interview. So judges would be meeting with the individuals for 15 to 20 minutes in chunks of time, presenting their innovation and going forward from there. And I will be sending that registration form. So anyone who wants to continue, again, the entire innovation showcase is virtual. So you can be anywhere in the world. Just as long as we can, convert times and show up at the right time in the Pacific time, we're good. But yeah, so round 2 and 3. Round 2 semifinal interviews take place November 18th. And then round 3 final interviews take place January 13th. So that's next year. So yes, there are 2 more rounds for this, but this is round 1. This is just, we're going to review all of the projects, and then following the submissions from those scoring forms, those projects will be tabulated, and then the top 10 in each age category, 12 to 15 and 16 to 19, will advance to the semifinal.
how many people are doing it? Like how many kids have registered for both sections this year or for round 1?
Yeah, we've got a fair number. I'm going to leave it at that right now. Just given kind of where we're at. Things are still growing, and we tend to see quite an influx in the last week. So youth registration will close next Monday, so September 29th. That is the cutoff for final pieces, but we're doing very well in terms of our numbers. Thank you for those questions. One piece I did want to just highlight and bring forward was in terms of the scoring form, this will be an important part. You'll see that they're drop downs, so it's not just enter 1, 2, 3, or 4, and that's because we did include part marks. So sometimes you get there and you look at the rubric and you're like, oh, it's kind of somewhere in the middle. So we did incorporate, 0.5 so that you were able to kind of put that there. So that's why there's a drop down, because otherwise the form just goes on forever if we just list them all as a multiple choice question. So, and again, the scale is at the top, in terms of how they go forward, and this will directly relate to the rubric, which is another resource that you'll have access to. And so what I would like to do right now, if it's okay with our judges, I'm going to flip back to our deck. We'll talk a little bit about our general philosophy and ethos around judging within the Youth Innovation Showcase. And then we're going to move into some more specific information about the criteria. So let me just grab our slides. Okay. In terms of our general ethos, how we approach judging within the Youth Innovation Showcase, our youth have been working hard for months in preparation for this competition. And you will find that the discussions and engagement that we have to be a highlight of the Youth Innovation Showcase. So the feedback that we're providing really is going to support these youth as they continue forward, whether or not they advance in the semifinals. Just the fact that someone has had the chance to review, read through, and provide some helpful feedback. This ties in directly to the fact that our first priority is that all youth have a positive judging experience. We want that feedback, again, to be constructive but supportive. So your role as a judge is not only to evaluate the merit of the project, but also provide that helpful constructive feedback as an expert and individual in your field. Now, directly related to the Youth Innovation Showcase, unlike science fairs, which can have studies and experiments, the Youth Innovation Showcase should be about innovation. So all of these submissions should be an innovation. So development and evaluation of innovative devices, new models or techniques, approaches in technology, engineering, computers. Again, we at the foundation provide and keep the definition of an innovation to be pretty broad because we want to be inclusive of a variety of ways in which our youth approach their innovative questions and ways of engaging with the community and thinking about how they might support that concern. So innovations could be brand new products or services, or an existing product or technology that's being used in a brand new way. But again, it's just not going to be a study, which is an evaluation or kind of a meta-analysis or review, and it's not an experiment. They may collect data if they're at the point where they have a prototype, but it's still something that they've developed, innovative component that they've approached. Which then ties into our judging criteria. So as you saw on the form, our projects are going to be evaluated based on 4 key criteria: innovation, communication, functional and realistic, and engagement. The video and project reports are important because they should demonstrate the individual's ability to communicate concepts, methods, and results that are relevant to their overall project. But what do these actually look like? And again, we've got a nice rubric that I'll share after I go through the 4 key criteria that may be more helpful for you. Really, our point here is just to provide as much information to you as a judge to help you along the way so that you feel that you have that support as you're going through and evaluating the project. But of course, that doesn't stop here. Ask us questions, send us emails, check in with us about things throughout the entire, 2.5 weeks as you're reviewing the project, because we're here to help. So the innovation is worth 40%. Is the idea unique? Is the subject matter challenging for this age category? There's a lot related to the actual innovation. Have they approached this in a novel way? Is this an extension of something that's already been known to have been done? So it may be something that you're familiar with. It might be something that you have to do a little bit of research just to see if a similar idea or innovation has been previously done. Again, we gave that 20-minute limit to kind of cap things at most. So don't worry about diving too far into the weeds to investigate if this is truly unique. And keep in mind, you're not the only judge per project. We are having 3 judges per project for a variety of feedback and insight for the youth. In terms of communication being 35%. Did the participant explain the subject matter clearly, allowing you to develop a genuine understanding of the innovation? An important tenet of the Youth Innovation Showcase is the capacity of youth to communicate to a diverse array of audiences. So while we ask for your experience in certain areas, and we do our best to match you with projects in that area that kind of identify in that space, you may not be evaluating all projects in that area. And so being able to still understand what the innovation is about, what problem they're trying to work towards or solve, even if you're not someone who's as familiar with that field, is a very important part of the Youth Innovation Showcase. In terms of functional and realistic, this is 15%. So did the participant make an effort to present their innovation in a manner that will work? Is it functional as it is outlined? Did the innovation effectively address the challenge that the youth identified? So again, is it realistic in how it's been approached in terms of access to the materials they have, or thinking about reactions or functions or forms that maybe are part of, this is maybe too big of a step from the problem to what they're proposing. Maybe there's something in the middle that needs to be done first. So again, that kind of functional and realistic piece. And then lastly, engagement. So did the participant capture your interest? Did you want to hear more about that innovation? Again, was the material as you reviewed it engaging to partake in? So again, round 1, it's asynchronous. You're not meeting with the students per se, but you are meeting them through their pitch videos. And so that piece that you're having there, that insight, that 45-second pitch that you're receiving for their innovation is what we're really kind of looking at in this respect. Okay. As I shift windows, I'm just going to open the rubric. And again, our hope is that this is something that would be helpful to you as we do continue along. But again, if it's too overwhelming, please do not hesitate to put it to the side. It's there as a reference point. And of course, let us know if you've got questions as you go along the way. And all of these materials, the slide deck, the link to the form, and the rubric will all be sent out with the recording later this week. So the start of the rubric is just some questions for reflection. These are the same questions that we have available on our website for youth to use as they're thinking about preparing their materials for the Youth Innovation Showcase. But they can give you some examples and some additional idea and information in terms of what we're looking for or what we're kind of assessing throughout the 4 key categories. Now, I'm not going to read through all of the questions here because what I'd like us to do is focus on the rubric itself. And I'll just walk us through how to use the rubric. So I'm scrolling down and I've zoomed in a bit so we can actually see because otherwise it's a little tiny on the PDF itself. But this rubric is organized on the left-hand column. We have the 4 key criteria. We can't see engagement, but it is there on the bottom. And then across the other columns, we have the different levels. So again, level 1, emerging. Level 2, developing. Level 3, proficient. And level 4, extending. And you'll see within each block, so if you kind of map from the criteria to the level, to be an emerging innovation, this innovation would directly replicate something that's already available with minimal effort to approach the problem in a creative way or to extend what's already been done. The innovation is not challenging for that age category, 12 to 15 or 16 to 19. So again, they're emerging. They're starting in that way. Developing, the innovation is starting to build on what's already been done with a clear effort in approaching the problem in a creative way. If they're proficient, then this innovation is unique and distinctly extends on an idea that already exists. Innovation information is shared in all formats in ways that the innovator has challenged themselves in approaching this innovation in a unique way. And then we get to extending. So kind of proficient is where have they met the criteria? Is their innovation, unique in that space? The extending on all 4 of the criteria is that kind of +1, that extra step. Is the innovation unique, novel, approached in a creative way, and challenging for the age category? So kind of has gone above and beyond, not just replicating something that's been done, but is a brand new approach to something. I'm not going to read through all of the criteria across for each of the different levels for each criteria, but we do provide this information as well as part of the rubric. So again, an opportunity, what's the difference between a level 1, a level 2, 3, and 4? And that's where we mentioned that sometimes judges have reported that a project is between level 2 and 3. And so we've incorporated those 0.5. So if you're like, I can't really settle between the two, no problem. That's what a 2.5 is for. Okay. Before we go into talking about feedback and providing feedback to the youth, what questions do you have about those 4 key criteria?
I don't have a question really about it's kind of with the innovation part, I guess, but like if we hear a really cool project, is their project confidential? Like do we just like say they do something really cool and it's like it's like interesting, I want to tell my mom or something. Could
Yeah.
I do that or no?
So I would say yes, you're welcome to tell others about this. We do so in most instances, all projects that make it through will have been evaluated and cross-referenced, that we have their consent forms on file. So their consent form being signed means that we have access and we can share and use their material. I would recommend not, sharing their material in a different way, but communicating it with others is totally fine. Because again, we're passionate about this and we're excited and we want to be like, did you know somebody created this thing in response, to nearly drowning. So we had to create a jacket, for heat and being able to survive in, cold waters, as some youth have done in the past. And so very innovative ideas and spaces there. And again, I definitely want you to be able to share with others. Might even recruit people to be judges along the way. But if there is anything that is potentially concerning or has been expressed to us by the youth or their parent or guardian, we will make that clear.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Any other questions before we move into feedback? Okay. So we'll shift back. Okay. So the item that our youth really are looking forward to is this feedback. So at all times throughout the judging process, it's important to keep in mind who are your intended audience members. This is the participants and the youth involved in the Youth Innovation Showcase. Your feedback will be sent to the participant anonymously, as we addressed earlier, following the round 1 judging. This means even if they don't advance to the semifinals, they still have numerous aspects of feedback for them to work on, grow on, and incorporate in future iterations should they wish to. As such, because we want them to have a positive judging experience, we do encourage that all feedback be constructive, supportive, and encouraging. So instead of approaching it as, you should have done this, maybe we can reframe it, for your next project, consider doing this. And again, just thinking about how we can frame or kind of approach that in a bit more of a supportive way, because again, we are working with youth from ages 12 to 19. So making sure that we provide that constructive feedback. We want to tell them how to improve or what to do differently for the future, but we also want to do it in a supportive way. So there are 2 models for providing feedback. There's many models out there in the field of education and just coaching and feedback providing, but 2 that we generally provide for our judges is the glow and grow model, which is just highlighting one area where the project is glowing and one area where the project can grow. So again, kind of going back to the question of how much feedback do you provide, it's really up to you, but there's different ways of approaching that. The other model is the feedback sandwich model. And so this is, again, thinking like a sandwich. One item that's been done well on the project, one area of constructive feedback for the youth to consider, and then kind of sandwiched at the end with an area of the project that should be continued in the future. So again, they're just recommended models. You've got your own way of approaching feedback, that's fine too. But really, it's just trying to ensure we have that balance between highlighting what it is that the youth have done well in their project and what constructive feedback we can provide. So again, that nice balance. Okay, the last little bit before I open it up one last time for questions are the frequently asked questions that we've received over our years with the Youth Innovation Showcase. So the first question being, how do I differentiate my evaluation for youth that have worked with mentors in a university lab versus those who have done everything at home? Now you may see this, and this is an important piece to keep in mind for sure. But again, kind of to the questions we've had earlier, our ethos is really focusing in on how well does the individual communicate? The flashiness, the prettiness of their video, of their report, that's very much secondary, tertiary to the actual, can they speak to what the innovation is about? Is it clear that they have a good grasp? They've done their research into whatever it is that they're investigating, that they're innovating and creating. Just because someone has access to different resources doesn't mean that they're necessarily able to communicate that information in the same way. So going back to the core principles, going back to the core criteria for the Youth Innovation Showcase, judging is an important piece, regardless of whether they've completed their project at home or in a lab. Our second question is, what if I'm not an expert on this topic? And we talked a little bit about that earlier. We do our best to match judges with projects that are close to their areas of experience, but it's quite all right if you're not. Again, it's just a great opportunity to see these fantastic projects and to review the materials that they've submitted. I mean, just hearing the passion and the excitement that so many of these youth carry forward in their pitches and in their reports, it's just such a beautiful space to be within. And so communication is a key part of the Youth Innovation Showcase. So can they communicate to diverse audiences? Again, avoiding that jargon, avoiding that overly technical language. My favorite question, may I judge more projects that I'm assigned? Of course. So, again, we go with what information you provided us on the judge feedback form or the judge registration form. But, given the number of projects we have and how we split them up, you may be like, I've got more capacity and I'm really loving these. I'd love to review more. Awesome. Send us an email. And I'm very happy to be like, here's some more links. So you can definitely judge more projects than you're assigned. But again, whether it's 6, 7, or 8+ as outlined on the judge registration form, that's what you'll be starting with. And then from there, you can reach out if you would like some more. And then lastly, we do have the question of what if I have a conflict of interest for a project I'm assigned to judge. So while we do ask that question on the judge registration form, sometimes things happen and you didn't know that the team that you coach for swimming lessons, somebody was going to submit an innovation. And so you're like, oh, I know this person, but from a very different space. I don't feel comfortable. I should not be evaluating their project. No biggie. They happen. Send us an email and we'll swap you with someone else. The sooner you can identify that and just let us know, the better. But generally, not a problem. We'll just switch the project with somebody else. Okay. So then before we open it to questions, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for those that have attended today. Thank you for those who are watching the recording after the session. And thank you for your time, throughout October to review and investigate these beautiful submissions that these youth have created, providing this really, robust and thoughtful feedback for them to take forward as they continue on their inquiry journey. You are not alone. While we have this information session and this instructional support, again, the slide deck and the rubric, as well as the form, will all be sent to you after this session. Please don't hesitate to connect with us. This will be the same email address that you would have been receiving for the initial call for registration. It's going to be the email address that we're going to communicate with you throughout the entire Youth Innovation Showcase competition. And so you're also going to get your project for evaluation from info@youthinnovation.ca. So if you got questions, send us an email there. We're very happy to support. And again, if you got questions throughout the 2.5 weeks as you're reviewing your submissions, don't hesitate to reach out, let us know, and we'll support as best we can. Without further ado, I'm going to drop the share, and I'd just like to open it for any last questions from our judges that are here today. Again, in the chat, unmute. Everything's clear as mud. No. Sometimes that information overload is just like, what happened? So no worries. Okay, awesome. Well, then with that, I'll hang out if anyone's got any questions afterwards, but we will stop the recording at this point. And again, a warm sentiment of thanks to everyone for your time, attention, and support of these youth, our next generation of learners. So, woohoo! Thank you and have a great rest of your day.